Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review for She-Hulk Attorney at Law, Superhuman Law. And I did not like this episode. It was only 30 minutes, so it wasn't that much of a time investment. However, it was just too compact, the pacing was off, and if what we've seen here is the level of depth that we're getting from the lawyering aspect, I don't mind a comedy and I don't mind a law comedy either. However, what we are introduced to in this is oh, we want She-Hulk the lawyer, but we don't know all the things that we need to about how lawyers and the legal system work, and we're just gonna fucking fuck with it. Which, if that's the kind of case, I would have rather them skewed it more towards Jen being more on the super heroic side rather than doing this. This was a very strange episode. There were parts of it that I liked, but not a lot of it. It's such a weird one. I like the main actress as Jen, and I think a concept like this of a fourth wall breaking comedy lawyering She-Hulk can work. However, this does not bode well for that premise for what we kind of get to. And we've also got some other stuff with the Thunderbolts being seated in here. Now, that's not horrible on its surface. However, we've gotten kind of confirmation of who will be in the Thunderbolts, and it's kind of just what in the actual ever-loving fuck? So, we get into the first part of the episode, and everybody's pretty much getting into oh, she's She-Hulk, you know what I mean? And I thought that bit was kind of funny because she was making fun of Bruce for being called Smart Hulk, and then she's like, fuck, everybody's calling me She-Hulk. And being yes, sometimes if you don't get out ahead and have that kind of understanding to get that name out first, you're gonna get stuck with the first kind of name that you get. But it was kind of interesting to see what they were doing. Of course, the courtroom sketches and everything of what was going on with her being She-Hulk, and everybody being oh, all right. And then we see her friend just being oh yeah, let's go in here and celebrate and everything like that. And she wants her to turn into She-Hulk, and she does, and everybody's oh, okay. We get the fucking douche lawyer from the beginning just grousing him being more of a dickhole. It's just oh, fuck you, dude. And then, of course, she gets some drinks in her, which is important because it's a little aspect that I at least like, where she gets some drinks into her, and then her boss comes over to talk with her, and he's listen, this is important, can you go back to Jen? And then she does, and she falls over and is what the fuck? And it's because of the metabolism of the alcohol. She can take it as She-Hulk, but then she gets fucking slammed with it when she goes back to her Jen form. But then her boss is listen, we're going to have to let you go. And this was a kind of cool thing that I wish that they had actually explored upon and went kind of more in depth. Granted, I know this isn't the kind of topic that really goes for the most kind of comedic kind of approach, but he's listen, we got a mistrial on that case you were doing because you saved the jurors, and there's no way they would pretty much go against you because you saved their lives from Titania, who was just trying to escape traffic court. Kind of random, and just okay, so she wasn't going, it at least explained how she kind of got there, mainly for accident purposes, because I'm what did she have with this case and anybody involved? It's she was just trying to get out of traffic court. I'm just alright, cool. She's going to be on the Thunderbolts, by the way, before I lose any track of that. But it's an important kind of conundrum. It's okay, and of course they don't want the added publicity of She-Hulk, so they're letting her go, and she's what the fuck? And it's an important kind of thing to kind of ruminate on. She did the right thing. She saved people. However, that did also have the ramifications of making it kind of impossible, and the opposing firm, GLK and H, think it's that. Ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba. What the hell? GLKNH, yes. And they got the mistrial from it. And it's like, oh, okay, that kind of sucks, but it could have been interesting to kind of delve more into that. Then it just goes through pretty much this whole thing of her trying to get a job and like dealing with unemployment, and it's just a really kind of quick thing. It's just like, oh look, like yeah, but I kind of rather would have had more kind of rumination on it because they just do it as kind of like a montage, and then her trying to find other kind of employment, pretty much putting her in a plot demandy kind of position of having to accept another offer later on. Like, the thing is, I can get it on a certain kind of publicity kind of aspect, but I would almost think that there are certain law firms that would definitely go for that kind of publicity angle, kind of like the one that she eventually goes with. So she kind of like commiserates with her friend, and the thing is, I didn't catch it until I saw stuff because she was thinking about even like a career pivot. There are two Easter eggs when she's looking on the internet that people are finally figuring out that there's a fucking kind of creature thing of the celestial poking out of the fucking earth from the Eternals. Thank you for finally bringing that up. And that there's a drop that like somebody with metal claws was involved in a bar fight. So that's a kind of Wolverine Easter egg. These are the kind of Easter eggs that I am fine with in the show because they're not giant, earth-shattering, universe-changing things of like introducing mutants. Me looking in and being like, oh, okay, that's a Wolverine reference. That's kind of cool. That works. Don't do that stuff in the TV shows that could be hit or miss or have no value added whatsoever for other people to be on there. And I'm just like, okay, cool. And then she has this family dinner that just pretty much shows the same kind of family dinner that is like presented in TV. It has really no organic flow and is just like almost as if somebody fucking focus group and took shit from a Reddit thread and just fucking threw people in and had them shouting shit. Like her father was asking about like Hawkeye's arrows and shit, and I'm like, she just like was like talking with like Bruce, and we don't even know an accurate kind of time frame, and how she would even talk to Hawkeye to even understand that kind of fact. It's again, it's almost like we've gotten to the point where like I've been talking about high school kind of stuff and how usually the only time you get a high school period right is when you are like 5 to 10 years past and the people who are writing that stuff was in that kind of situation and can accurately do that dialogue. This is what people think Marvel people would just like fans would do it, and it's like, oh, this is how they would do it in this universe. It's like maybe they would talk about this certain stuff, but they wouldn't talk about it like this. And of course, it goes with the whole trope. She lost her job. Who the fuck was that Ched dude to her? Other family member dude. It got promoted to manager at Best Buy. And like the mom talks about, oh, you brought these sweets and fuck with your figure. It's like she could just turn into She-Hulk and burn that shit off, man. What the fuck? Like, have you... Oh, whatever. But that shit was going on. I'm like, okay. Like, I understand that my whole kind of thing is the execution of it and how it really adds nothing to the episode overall. Except things that I've seen before, seen done better, and executed better in other shows. Then we get a kind of good portion where the father kind of pulls her in and asks her how she's doing, where they then, of course, talk about it. She's like, should I just let those people get fucking brained by a fucking desk? He's like, no. And talking about how the family has had to deal with the Hulk before, of course, with Bruce. And it's kind of cool that they at least attempt to like talk about and understand what's going on. She's like, I'm as okay as I can be. So then she shifts over. Well, that's not the end part for the family thing. We also get a stinger at the end for like just showing that the family just abused her She-Hulk thing, and she was like left in a car, bringing in water containers, lifting his TV onto the wall and everything. It's like, okay, like I understand it if it brings comedic value to someone. Now, granted, there does get to a certain point when you live long enough that you've seen most of this shit done before, and at least through what it could be done better, or nostalgia talking. There's a little bit of A, a little bit of B. However, this was just like, okay, this didn't add value to me. Now, if it added value to you and you found it funny, good for you. Honestly, I'm not trying to be facetious or anything. That's good. Take that. So that's that. She's then sitting at the bar, pretty much drowning her sorrows, and then the head dude's like, oh, yeah, I want to offer you a job because your case would have sunk us. And I'm like, really? All right. And she pretty much wrangles it that she can, like, hire her own paralegal. The dude's like, I don't give a fuck. And she then goes in, and he pretty much just wants her as She-Hulk all the time as pretty much the publicity thing. She's like, fuck. And then she's like fourth wall breaking, pretty much like, this is kind of stupid, as the dude's talking, and then she just made up some bullshit that she's agnostic on whatever he was talking about. I was like, oh, we'll have to see about that. And she's like, well, now I'm going to have to be like spending a year trying to figure out how that kind of works. And then her friend's like freaking out. I was like, yeah, this is really awesome. And then we see a dude come in, pretty much has like a welcome gift package. And the other kind of good thing, besides like the little Easter eggs and the kind of whole question of like saving these people, and the moral conundrum of that is that he came in and is like, yeah, and this is the route to the best bathroom to poop in. And it's like, you know what? That's actually important information for a new colleague to know. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, okay, that's kind of funny. I can work with that. No, granted, it kind of devolves into a poop joke, but it's more like, oh, okay, here's all this kind of shit, but, like, here you go. Like, it's just a little funny thing for me. And if it's not funny to you, that's cool. So then she pretty much gets brought in by the head dude, and this is where the lawyering kind of stuff kind of falls apart. I do not know law and legal stuff and all that kind of stuff. All right, I have no understanding. I've got basic kind of things that have like popped up in pop culture, lexicons and vocabularies and all that kind of stuff, and basic kind of frameworks of how it is explained sometimes when certain kind of legal cases pop up, because I'm interested. I like learning about that stuff. However, this whole conflict of interest thing kind of just fucking boggles my mind, because Emil Blonsky, who's the Abomination, is up for parole, and the dude decided to take his case pro bono because it's good publicity for it and wants Jen to represent him. She goes, that's a conflict of interest because he tried to kill my cousin, which, valid, because she could potentially bomb on the case to make sure he doesn't get parole, because the motherfucker tried to kill her cousin. Granted, since they're both kind of gamma fucked up guys, like, the ability for him to actually kill her cousin is hit or miss, but that's still besides the point. If she could figure out that there's a clear and present danger, she could bomb it. But he's like, oh no, he signed this waiver kind of thing. I'm like, I don't think that's how that works. I don't think any kind of legal kind of system would actually be able to... I think even the judge would be like, I don't know about this, you know? So I was just like, alright. And I'm like, oh, if you don't take this, you're going to be fired. It's like, oh, come the fuck on. It's like, alright, plot demands that she's got to do this fucking shit. It's just like, I would almost like her to do quasi-angel style of setting up her own law practice at that point. Granted, that could be a thing that happens in this show, but it's just like, alright, fine, whatever. So, we essentially get introduced to the raft kind of thing. Evidently, the Department of Damage Control is essentially S.H.I.E.L.D. at this point, and she goes there while in She-Hulk form, and he's like, this dude's like, can't go in with superpowers. So she goes back to her gen form, goes in, this dude's giving her this whole kind of spiel. She makes a Hannibal Lecter kind of reference because, yeah, fucking course. Now, granted, I'm not against references like that, but, like, you've done it to death. You gotta jazz it up a little bit. It's like, nah. Like, no nonsense kind of stuff. It's like, alright, so she goes in. We get the lowdown from Emil. This is kind of awkward because the thing is, he has not really been in and, like, talking and introduced since pretty much the Incredible Hulk. Granted, we have seen him in Shang-Chi, and that is brought up again. But it's like, oh, okay, so he has to pretty much reintroduce himself as a character, talking about all the stuff that he's done and how he's remorseful. He's found peace. He can control his transformations now. He's been writing haikus to apologize to the people that he's hurt. She's just like, that. I don't need to know that. He evidently wants to get out for the 7 kind of pen pal soulmates, which is reference to the Thunderbolts, I believe, because they're doing a kind of amalgamation of like kind of Dark Avengers, Suicide Squad, to what I've seen, because it would have Yelena, Emil, John Walker, Titania, Zemo. Who the hell else? Let me see. Let's see. Valentina. I also had like the Winter Soldier. It's like, what the fuck? So, granted, it's weird to have people that we would think as heroes, but if it's more of a Suicide Squad kind of understanding, you do kind of want some actual heroes on the team to wrangle up the motherfuckers that are gonna like go nutty. Though, granted, you would kind of want 2 Gamma members on there, because if Abomination goes Hambo, Jambo, Rambo, good luck trying to stop that shit. With just, you know what I mean? Unless you're able to somehow weaponize Bruce's inhibitor thing and just fucking shoot it at his ass and be like, you are not doing that. But she's talking to him, and he's like, yeah, I'm cool. Yeah. So she then essentially calls up Bruce, so it's nice to get Bruce involved, and she just pretty much word vomits pretty much that she's going to pretty much take the case. Bruce is like, yeah, I'm okay, he sent me a letter, we're both different people now, I've forgiven him, we're good and all that, and yeah, I think you should take the case. And she's like, alright, cool. And then the phone call drops because he's on that Sicarian courier message thing and is flying off to some other place. And I'm like, I'm interested in that. Not that I'm not interested in Jen's stuff, but it's like, what the fuck here? So she calls and says that she's going to accept it, and then he's like, alright, cool, you better turn on the TV then. And then she sees the news thing, it's like, yes, the Abomination has been escaping and doing underground fights. And it's like, and you... I understand it's done to kind of elevate and create more conflict and drama for her case. However, if you're the head partner at the firm and learn this information about this case that would essentially make it so that way you cannot get parole for this dude because he's been escaping out and doing shit with Wong in underground fight clubs, I almost thought that it could potentially have been linked to, like, part of whatever his program was in the prison. But evidently, no. And it's just essentially almost like a giant fuck you to Jen more than anything. I'm just like, I wouldn't take the case and just set up your own shit. Granted, is that extremely hard to do with the amount of debt that, like, lawyers get out of, like, getting their legal degree? Fuck yes. Okay? But she just essentially got, like, steaming shat on twice. It's like, yes, we want you to represent someone who tried to kill your cousin. All right. So she waffles about for it, even though it's not a lot of time, because this is 30 minutes and it's fucking jammed and paced like fucking whole hell. And then it's like, this fucker's been doing bad shit. Even though it's not, like, the worst. I mean, he could have been, like, going out and just fucking Rambo Jamboing and being an asshole and killing people and eating people. Yeah, they could have went the Ultimates route and had him like the Blob just going around, I'm gonna eat somebody, but no. So yes, it's just more of a headache of like the plot demands to me, but granted, I do like that they are acknowledging that, hey, he has been out and doing other kind of shit, so it's something that she has to deal with. So we'll have to see. It's just since it's like She-Hulk Attorney at Law, I thought there would be more I understand that doesn't make for the most riveting TV, and especially if you want to see her doing actiony superhero things. However, there are precedents for other kind of stuff. There are people that are into Law and Order and all that kind of stuff, and if you kind of juggle it around to kind of like the detective stuff that like Angel did in that TV show, you could do a lot with that. Now, granted, of course, the time frame of going to like 30-minute ish and change episodes is going to constrain you on certain things. Write for it well and understand how you need to pace it and do action and that kind of stuff. I don't know. This just really was like, I went from, okay, I get it. I like this introduction. I like that we got more stuff on the Hulk, and with Jen, it's like, all right, let's see what this second episode kind of brings. I was like, ooh. So we've got more episodes. We'll see how that kind of works out, if it kind of evens out, and how it kind of works. But I did not enjoy this episode. So those are my opinions on the episode. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also, like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.